Good evening and welcome to Viewpoint. Tonight we look at tourism and the impact that changes brought about by the coronavirus pandemic have had on trade that depends on tourism. It's the least controversial form of globalization. For those traveling abroad, it promises a wide variety of pleasures. For the host receiving tourists, it brings in cash. Normally, lots of it. But business has been on pause because of the coronavirus, and it's only slowly picking up. Governments, business and individuals are beginning to come to terms with how to live with Covid-19 and manage the serious risks it poses. Holidays are being booked, but as my colleague Shelina Assomull and I report over the next hour, we are a long way from where levels of tourism would normally be at this time of the year.
A few weeks ago there were concerns that tourism might not return to Gibraltar till October, perhaps even next year. But walking through town today we can certainly see that there are visitors to the Rock.
I wouldn't be on a plane right now. I wouldn't want to sit on a long flight with a mask, but short trips.
Well, it's a bit difficult with the airports, but it's also kind of nice because there's not so many other people, so it's a good time to see places so long as you do it in a safe manner.
I've been told this week that more and more people are now starting to come in. The shops are getting busier, obviously nowhere near the levels of a normal July.
Well, if it's carry on picking up, and if tourists come to Spain and then directly come to Gibraltar, it can only be better.
Just enjoying the beaches and, just Gibraltar in general, so I'm not going anywhere this year.
The demand was more than I expected, and the places they go to was more than I expected. I thought they were just going to stay near the Andalusia area.
From the commercial point of view, I cannot see an airline carrying passengers at a loss.
Oh, sorry, you're on standby, we don't have enough places, it's been oversold. Obviously my first reaction was just cried, to be honest.
The taps of our economy as far as tourism is concerned have been completely and utterly shut for 3 or 4 months.
We have no cruise liners calling into Gibraltar, no British cruise liners calling into Gibraltar until October, and possibly the American operators, cruise operators, will not be calling to Gibraltar until March.
By not having tourism in Gibraltar, we're down week on week, big double digits, and we don't see it getting better till at least October.
Looking for the future, it's very uncertain, and at the moment the level of sales, as I said, are nowhere near last year's figures, so there's going to be some significant changes.
Chris Walker, what have the past few months been like for M&S?
Very challenging. Sometimes it's been rewarding, certainly during March when we were just open on foods and serving the community and giving out Easter eggs to the old age pensioners. There were times where it was rewarding, but overall it's been an extremely challenging period of time for us. We were able to trade on food throughout the whole period, but really that was just as a service really to the community. Now that we're fully reopened, we're just getting used to the new trading patterns that are emerging. Sales are been significantly affected, not only when we were closed on clothing and home, but ever since we've reopened, obviously the foot flow has been significantly affected and sales have been affected in the same way.
We've seen that the cruise industry has been one of the hardest hit by the virus.
Yep.
So how is that area of the business faring?
Well, at the moment, practically at zero. At zero because we have no cruise liners calling into Gibraltar, no British cruise liners calling into Gibraltar until October, and possibly the American operators, cruise operators, will not be calling to Gibraltar until March. In fact, we've already been notified that that's going to be the case. However, what we've done is keep on working towards the future and changing all of our excursions and giving it more of an outdoors activities for the cruise liners, making those excursions more sustainable as well. And I think that actually has been welcomed by the cruise operators.
And the last time we spoke, you mentioned not only do cruise liner passengers account for a large number of tourists visiting the Rock, but they tend to be the highest spenders when it comes to tourists visiting. So given that that industry seems like it will take longer than others to get back to somewhat normal, how much of an impact will that have on tourism in Gibraltar?
As I said before, I mean, we cannot really shy away from the fact that it's going to be a very bad year. In fact, I would even say, this year is absolutely totally lost. And basically what we have to do is focus on 2021, come March 2021, and that is where we're spending all our time and resources in.
Ludo, we know it's been a very difficult few months for retail. Covid-19 has changed a lot of aspects of our lives. How has Newton Store experienced the recent months?
Well, I would say it was a massive challenge. It hasn't been too bad for us because our line of retail, IT, hasn't been too much affected. It was challenging because we had to adapt, but in terms of sales, it wasn't too bad. It's not like, and the online side of the business, the corporate side of the business, all that was almost not affected. So we had to adapt, and in that sense it was challenging. We are all staff that if they could work from home, they work from home, which was the majority. Others chose to be here. All these things that we had to adapt, and we had to adapt very fast. And then the other way is also a challenge in itself. But I mean, other people have suffered far more than we have.
In respect of the challenges that you did face, what comment would you make about the support offered by the government?
Oh, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant. Yeah. I mean, trying to make a difference to support the local business. With asking the landlord for their contribution, all this has been very, very positive. Yeah.
Now, there's also the question of refunds. Many people had booked holidays for this year and will no longer be going for whatever reason. How is it going when it comes to that process? Have you had many requests?
Actually, we've been very, very lucky, and I have to say that my clientele is excellent. They've basically told us to keep the money and that they're going next year. Or if they want, I can refund them, but some don't. Nearly all of them say no, keep the money, next year we'll book it for whatever. And another thing was that some companies don't give you the actual refund cash. They give you a voucher which you can use whenever to go with them with that company somewhere else. I'm going to give you an example. Norwegian Cruise Line, if they cancel a cabin, they give a voucher to us to give the client, for the client to know and to keep the actual voucher for further use with Norwegian Cruise Line. That is happening a lot. I know maybe some people are not very happy with that. They would like the cash back, and I totally agree. I feel like that. But no, many companies have given vouchers.
Do you, as a travel agent, have any authority to be able to give them the cash refund somehow anyway? Are they advantaged by having booked it through you as opposed to online themselves?
They are. If we are talking about actual cash refunds, it is because they have booked with us. I have to say that. Yeah.
Now, we have heard a lot of stories from people who have struggled to acquire refunds, for example, with airlines, calling numbers that don't answer for a long time, vouchers,
that is the job of a travel agent.
Vouchers being the preferred option, etc. So how long, for those who have asked for refunds, is that process taking when it comes to them coming through you?
We are still working on refunds, and I think we will still work on refunds for another month. We are very organized. We've worked very late every day to try to clean up every single booking that needs an action done by a travel agent of getting vouchers or getting cash, etc.
So how long can a client of yours expect to have to wait before they get their refund?
They can wait a month, they can wait 2 months, 6 weeks, around that area, that area of time.
Well, lockdown was very tough. We managed it as best as we could in the circumstances. Furlough, without the government support, we wouldn't be here today most probably. Since lockdown, trade was very positive the first 6 to 8 weeks. Locals were shopping local, that made a huge difference to us. Now it's slowed down, weather, external factors, and the biggest obviously is no tourism. By not having tourism in Gibraltar, we're down week on week, big double digits, and we don't see it getting better till at least October.
Why do you say that?
Well, tourism normally is peaks July, August, whilst our locals are on the beach. September's also a very touristic month. Then we start getting back to normal after National Day. Till October, where that Christmas ramps up and it's those important 3 months, I don't see the local retail sector picking up. Hopefully it'll be before.
Okay. How would you characterize the past few months?
It's been very, very difficult. In our line of business, about 90% of our business comes from visitors, and say about 10-15% from locals, and we haven't really seen an upturn in business as yet. We were actually quite hopeful that once the frontier fluidity improved completely, or the restrictions in Spain were over, we would see tourism coming in. But unfortunately, Spain itself hasn't received much tourism. I mean, you read that in all the UK newspapers and on Spanish TV. So things are quite abysmal at the moment.
I'm sorry to hear that. So 85-90% of your trade would normally be from tourists?
From visitors, yes.
Visitors, and those would be visitors
so it's
to the Costa or Gib?
People who come to Spain for 2 weeks and come for a day trip, and that would include a lot of Russians. Russians at the moment are restricted from going to Spain. Cruise ships, of course, was a very big input. But it's very worrying because I don't know where we're going to get the income in the next few months.
It's picking up. I think there are more people visiting Spain, and we're getting the traditional day tripper coming to Gibraltar. That is what July and August is primarily about. Like I said,
these are people from other countries visiting Spain
and then coming to Gibraltar. Yes. So, like I said, that is something that during these months Main Street primarily depends on. Unfortunately, we don't have any cruise ships, so that is a dent. But look, again, these are the times that we live in. We don't know when cruising will start. Unfortunately. But as far as people entering Gibraltar, yes, there are more. Nowhere near, as I said, not satisfactory at all. But we need to. I think we need to wait. There needs to be more confidence in people wanting to travel. The whole of the Costa del Sol is in a very similar situation. The Costa is a very popular destination. I'm told that the hotels are pretty empty. I'm told the beaches are empty. I'm told some restaurants haven't even opened in the area. So it's difficult times all around.
Not every business is the same. So there will be, for example, a law firm, which is something that I'm familiar with, will not need the same assistance or indeed any assistance because we work more in the financial services sector. We deal with court cases, so our sort of supply line may not be as affected as, for example, those industries that rely on the entry of passengers through the cruise port. And I'm thinking about particularly the taxi fraternity. I'm thinking about companies like MH Bland, who have incidentally, it is now publicly known that they are considering collective redundancies. These companies need another specific type of help.
So progressively our clothing sales are around minus 47% on last year, so roughly we've lost 50% of our business. Food has basically, it's matching last year's sales, so food is doing okay, it's level on the year, but it's the clothing on areas that are really affected us. Footfall is even worse. Footfall we think is around minus 60, minus 65% compared to last year. Yeah, our indications there. So we have full counters in the store, so yeah, footfall is significantly down. Obviously, you know, we've really got behind the Keep It Local campaign. We've done a lot of promotions. We've just come out of a big 30% promotion on most of the stock in store, and we've now just gone into sale. So, you know, we're really happy to support that and keen to support it going forward. And I think it's a great initiative. And obviously the measures that the government have put in have helped us get through, you know, this extremely trading time. But looking for the future, you know, it's very, very uncertain. And at the moment, the level of sales, as I said, are nowhere near last year's figures, so there's going to be some significant changes.
I would say at the moment, and July, August, September are really our best months. We're doing 10%, 15% of what we normally do. Yeah. I mean, government has helped as much as they can. I would have been happier to see the rent waiver being 50% still for the next 3 months rather than 25%, but you know, every little bit helps. But the point in Gibraltar is our overheads are very high. Rents run into thousands of pounds. Yeah.
So 75% of thousands of pounds is still a lot of money when you're not bringing much in.
Yeah. And you know, it's embarrassing to say this, but you know, I'm here 7.5 hours every day, and there are days that we don't do a single penny of sales, and that's the reality of it. Yeah.
Now, travellers arriving at Gibraltar Airport will be required to wear face coverings at all times, and they must keep to designated areas. As part of new Covid-19 measures, no one other than travellers will be allowed into the airport terminal, and special assistance for vulnerable passengers is also being introduced.
Insofar as flights is concerned, EasyJet started operations on Monday with a flight from Manchester. I was told that it had a very good load factor of approximately 75 to 80%. For a first flight, I think that is excellent. They start on the 25th, the route to Gatwick. I expect that to be even more popular because, as always, the London routes are more popular. EasyJet are hoping to continue increasing their frequency. As you know, airlines are very difficult, are going through a very difficult time. So they need to be careful. They can't be flying half-empty planes or empty planes. They need to have their planes full so that they can make the most of it commercially.
Gibraltar has gone out and helped the merchant shipping industry incredibly. We've had very good reports. Director of Public Health, contingencies, Captain of the Port, Borders and ourselves have worked very hard to have protocols in place, and we are doing a lot of ship's crew apart from the airlines themselves, charter traffic too. And we do have charters coming in, changing crews or bringing them in or actually taking them out. And I think we've made a name for ourselves there.
Scott signed off last week in Gibraltar Anchorage area. We are going through British Airways, then from there other airways we are getting connected. Then later on we are going by charter flights, reaching India.
We were in hotel for more than 8 days here staying, okay. We were like inside the hotel, and we were also taking safety precautions of Covid-19. So today is our flight. We are flying to Heathrow. From there we are going to Doha, Qatar. Then from there to India. Our destination is the India now.
Were you able to leave the hotel whilst you were here for the 8 days, or you had to stay there the whole time?
There were no restrictions, but we took a safety and we were not going anywhere.
What has informed the decision for, at least for the meantime, not to use temperature scanners when we have seen them in use in other areas, for example, at the border?
The border is slightly different. If you get to the border, you can go back. It's slightly bit more complicated when you come on an aircraft, and that's why the UK airports, they're not doing it either. I know there's a few trials happening in airports, and they're having major issues, calibration of equipment. What do you do if you do pick up somebody? You need a medical team. It gets quite complicated. But I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It certainly will escalate. It's always under review, and it will escalate if it has to.
Lastly, the prevalence of the virus is quite low in our community here in the Rock. Our statistics have shown there are very, very few cases, especially now. So what has informed the decision to encourage those departing the Rock, where there's a low prevalence of the virus, to wear face masks, and not those arriving from the UK, which, as we have seen on the news, has not dealt with the virus in the best way? So why not encourage arrivals to use masks?
Remember that the passengers leaving Gibraltar are not all Gibraltar residents. That's the first one. Many of them are crew members, and many of them are also coming from across the border. There were no flights going into our neighboring airports for the last few months, and a big portion of those passengers were also from coming in from Spain. So they were one of the highest infected countries. So that's the reason for this.
Okay. Why not arrivals too, though?
There's no change with arrivals.
Why not encourage those passengers arriving to wear face masks?
They will be encouraged by the countries of origin, and policies on the other side of their flight, the other airport, will decide what they bring here. And of course we want you to wear them if you have them. But what I can't do is not let you into Gibraltar if you're not wearing one.
I've come to see my son, who lives in Spain. He lives in Estepona, so this was a convenient airport to come to.
We're just going back to London. We've got a house in Spain that we had to come out and do some legal work on.
Yeah, it definitely didn't go as planned. I got to the airport, couldn't check in beforehand, and when I got there they said, "Oh, sorry, you're on standby, we don't have enough places, it's been oversold." Obviously my first reaction was just cried, to be honest, and just kind of had to wait around until they said, "Yeah, we've got a seat for you." It was packed on the flight, so not really the best kind of conditions given the circumstances, but just glad I'm here now. So
yeah, Heathrow Airport. So hand sanitizer, face masks before you enter the building. I think relatives were not able to go inside the airport terminal, so everybody was saying goodbye outside the airport terminal. Only a handful of shops were open. You were only able to take your mask off if you were sitting within social distancing in a shop, but anywhere else you have to wear your mask. And just a lot of security around people, complying with the ruling, really.
Heathrow's all right. Here's a bit more strict.
Really?
Yeah. Here's strict in Spain. Spain's so relaxed.
And it's an almost possibly impossible sort of equation to strike, which is, as you rightly point out, getting the numbers in, getting the people in Gibraltar, but doing so in a very safe manner, because what we don't want is the lives of our citizens, which at the end of the day is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. That trumps, that consideration in my view, and in the view of my party, trumps any considerations of economic wealth, etc. But it is a difficult balance to strike. One of the sort of marketing themes that, I've discussed this with the Minister for Tourism a few months back. One of the marketing drives is the fact that we can sell the fact that Gibraltar has actually at this stage, emphasis on the words at this stage, done so well in terms of tackling and dealing with the threat that the coronavirus has been. And well and good, but I think we need to have, by sort of balance striking, what we need to ensure is that safety is of paramount concern, and that we have everything in place here to ensure that we don't have the virus coming into our shores. But I think, given that we live in such a in many respects, an enclosed environment, and in this sense, I think small is good and small is beautiful, we can, I think, have the means of ensuring that safety remains paramount, whilst at the same time bringing in the money.
What I've noticed is that the airlines, British Airways still have a full schedule on sale. I think they're waiting to see what sort of response they have. When EasyJet wanted to start operations, they confirmed it to us only a week before, because I think they're taking decisions very carefully, and they're being calculated, and if need be, they're cancelling flights. And I think that is what British Airways are doing. But from what I see on their website, they have 2 flights on most days of August. So we're hopeful that they will keep that.
We've seen a change in trend. Okay. Whilst probably before COVID, guests were interested in hotel vacation. Now it's very much focused on private villas with sort of a more private ambience that people are actually safer, or they feel safe to actually travel to. As I said, private villas has been very successful. We've been selling that. And as I said before, people are looking for a safe environment.
I want to go on a flight. No, just Spain, the near area around here. Still concerned, yeah. Taking all the precautions, being careful, yeah. Making sure you have the masks on in Spain.
At the moment, the things in Spain is getting worse again. So I don't know what the rush is, because all they're doing is rushing into an unknown fate. The bug is there. It doesn't check whether you're a long-distance traveller or a short-distance traveller. And seeing the irresponsibility of people on the beaches and restaurants and in the evenings, I feel much safer in Gibraltar, personally.
Demand is more than what I expected, so I'm happy. Maybe the demand now is at 35-40% when we normally have a demand of 90%. So yeah, that's basically it with regards to the demand, about 35-40%.
And the majority of the work within tourism you do is locals booking holidays abroad. So what kind of holidays are locals booking at the moment?
The locals are booking holidays. They're booking obviously out from Gibraltar, because that is what we do. Elite Travel basically just sends people out to adventure in different types of holidays. We've done a lot of Balearic, the islands. We've done a lot for the Canary Islands, and beach resorts, Costas, right? Mm-hmm. Sweden, Denmark, Oslo. We've done bookings there also, and we've done 2 other places, but I don't remember at the moment. But the demand was more than I expected, and the places they go to was more than I expected. I thought they were just going to stay near the Andalusia area.
Ventured out into Spain a little bit, went to Torremolinos. That's about it really. La Linea, not much further than that.
And how are you feeling about that in terms of safety in respect of COVID?
I feel like Spain's taking it quite seriously, like the masks are mandatory. So I don't know, I feel pretty safe out there, to be honest.
We cancelled a holiday that we had in Thailand in November because we thought it wasn't worth the risk of going abroad and so far. And basically we just booked off the cuff a week up in Conil.